Are you all ready to join me today in our trip to outer space?
Come along quietly or not.
I will talk to you of art. For there is nothing else. Some artist made a hook.
Yes.
You bite upon it.
Classy. And now, without further ado,
you don't feel guilty at all.
There's no need to feel guilty. I haven't done anything I'm ashamed of. Maybe I haven't done enough. I might be ashamed of that, for not doing enough, for not giving enough, for not being more perceptive, for not being aware enough, for not understanding, for being stupid. I don't fit in society, and I am incompetent. I'm definitely incompetent. I would. Well, I say that. I say that. No, there's nothing wrong with being incompetent because you don't have to do as much. If you're competent, then you got a lot to do.
Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. I am Albert Shivers, and on this episode today is Kelly Ann Walsh. She's the special guest today. Kelly and I met at a theater, the Diva Theater in Scranton, but I'm still convinced I've seen her somewhere before that. In this episode, Kelly and I get into a lot of fun topics, and we have really have a ball talking with her, but the main thing, a heavier thing that we get into is the why of being an artistic person or being an artist. By the why, I mean, pretty much, let's see, you know, when somebody who isn't an artist, so it doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter if it's drawing, it doesn't matter if it's theater, it doesn't matter if it's acting in front of the camera or filmmaking or photography, when you are an artist like that, there's nothing else you want to do. It just begins and ends with that. You eat, sleep, and breathe it. And to the people who really are passionate about it, if it's really living inside them, then they will do it just for the love of doing it. Example, and Kelly Ann is a good example of this, but also other people who've been on this show, whether it was, we go back to Luke and Andrew, or a few, they're not coming to my mind now, but people who were actors, did things on stage, did things in front of the camera. Let's leave out visual art, leave me out of it. So people are doing these local plays and all these things in between jobs. In other words, like, they're doing it on their time off. They're taking time off the job that is paying them to do this. And you bring that back around. Let's talk about it in terms of visual art and sacrificing time, which is what acting people are doing until they make it, however you want to define making it. But on the art side, from personal experience and speaking for a little bit for other artists, there are so many other things we could be doing, okay? Drawings and paintings take hours, weeks, months sometimes. There are so many other things we could be doing, but artists have chosen to take that time and dedicate it to this. And my feelings, so now I went to IS-61, Staten Island, and that school had something called the magnet program. From 6th to 8th grade, you had to put a portfolio in and they accepted you. I don't know if they even turned anybody down, but I was into that. So for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I was in a drawing program. And after I left 8th grade and left IS-61 and went on to high school, I never picked up a pencil again until 2012. Okay? So I've been taking a crack at visual art solely for about 3 years. Like, nothing but it. No film work or anything. But I've been doing art in a serious way since 2012. Let's just say that. And in that time, I realized through other artists and through my own experience that you better love drawing, because it is not impossible, but it is an uphill battle to be able to make any sort of real, livable, sustainable money off of it. I think it's wrong to tell people it's impossible, because there are jerks all over the internet, all over the world, doing bad art, and they're doing fine with it. So if your good art is most likely better than theirs, and they've made it, so why can't you, why can't me, why can't any of us? I think the perceived notion of, the scarcity of making it is a bit overblown. Doesn't mean it's easy, and hard work whittles down the field, so to speak, but I don't think it's impossible. There are niches everywhere, and I don't know, I think to be, do this, no. It reminds me of something. I was talking to a friend of mine who acted, and he had to take a week off of his own work to do this run of plays. It was like a Christmas show or something. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. That is a form of sacrifice, and he may not become, world renowned, but in that moment, for that week, while he was doing that play, or while someone is working on a drawing, or working on a film, or struggling to get things done, those are those moments that are going to make things worth it, and I see it with art. I was just looking through portfolios today from 2013 and 14. I was like, geez, how bad was I then? And then I thought that I was doing fantastic. And I look back, I'm like, oh boy. But who knows what it will look like in another 5 years, or another 6 years, or 8 years. And you will be able to go back and look at that work that you did, and either see your improvement or be glad that you did it. There's no way to come all the way back around. There's no way to talk the artist, the actor, the filmmaker, the photographer, whose heart is really in it. There's no way to talk them out of it. There's no way. And that's why some artists some artists die poor, they have terrible lives, they're isolated, and it's for that reason, because the rest of the world isn't ever going to get that is what you live and breathe. They're not going to get it, and that's just something that you need to accept and move on with. They're not going to get it. Don't expect them to get it, and expect them to knit and peck and pick at you as you go down the road, because you can't look. If I ran into a Japanese guy today walking around, and we both had a conversation, I don't know nothing about Japanese, and he doesn't know nothing about English, that's what it's like. That's what it's going to be like from the artistic point of view, talking to someone who's just not going to get it. Someone who's just not going to get it. That it lives and breathes and evolves in you, and in them, they got cobwebs, pretty much. That's it. I don't want to be cruel here, but that's the long and short of it. So Kelly and I get into that, and from her point of view of being an actress in Scranton, Pennsylvania, or in that area, who is doing it because she just purely loves doing it. And those are the artists that I like to talk to, okay? Artists who haven't been, their mind hasn't been changed by what it takes to make it. They're just doing it, and they're doing it just because they just rawly love doing it, okay? Art, and when you're in that mindset, it's like being on the bus in Speed. There's no way to stop it. There's no way to stop it. All the cars and all the people can get in your way. You're just going to squash them because you found your passion in what you're doing, which is the arts, which has become very hard to survive in, but you know what? It's not impossible. It's not. It's way more possible than everybody would have you believe. Do I have proof of this? I don't have proof of this. But it's just a feeling that lives in my heart, it lives in my gut, that it's possible. With the passion and the love for it, and the willingness with that passion and love to just kill yourself and do the hard work, next thing you know, you'll be there. And all that time that you worked on it, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you'll have that whole body of work, just like I did, to look back on and go, oh, geez, I thought I was good then, and look how much I improved, or see your process. Look back on it, see where you evolved, where you grew. So all of it matters. All of it matters, from that first attempt, the first time you went on stage, the first time your pencil hit the page, the first time you said action or rolling in your film. All that, from that moment on, all matters. This isn't a jump like this. This is the steady growth. Okay? Now I'm going to finish ranting. Don't forget to pick out Albert Shivers' Patreon channel. Patreon, just type in Albert Shivers. You can check out what's going on there. Instagram, @Albert Shivers. I'm going to have new episodes of Insomnia Art coming out this week for you to check out. A lot of new drawings coming out. I'll keep everything posted on Instagram and on Patreon. If you're on Facebook, which seems to be dying more and more every day, you could look at Albert Shivers Visual Artist, the like page on there. And that's all I got to say. Let's get to this conversation I had with Kelly. I loved the conversation. She's always a lot of fun. And I hope you enjoy it too. And I'll hear from you on the other side of it.
You are listening to the first station on your dial, WCNW, operating on a frequency of 1,500 kilocycles in Brooklyn, New York.
And I hear a lot of stories about Zoom and all that. Do I need to like take my pants off before we start, or is that only Zoom? Like, how does that work?
You can keep them on for now.
All right,
we'll see what happens as the show goes.
Fair enough.
Okay, but yeah, I was telling some sordid tales of inadvertently getting dosed with angel dust, and it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't a pleasant time.
No. When you're not expecting it, planning on it,
no,
didn't ask for it, it's not a pleasant experience. Yeah, I know. So that's, I was telling you, I actually had something very similar happen. I was about 19 years old, and I had already moved out of my mom's house, but I was still working at the Wendy's in Clark Summit, which is not far from her house. Mm-hmm. I didn't drive, so I had to always get a ride. Well, the person that was giving me a ride that day was actually the manager's sister.
Okay.
And I was living in an apartment. It was me and my boyfriend and his best friend, but then his cousin was there so much that he might as well have been living there. And so I asked his cousin one day if he could get me a bag of weed, and he was like, "Oh yeah, of course, no problem." Mm-hmm. So he showed up that morning with a bag of weed, and you know, I was getting ready for work, and Helen, the girl that was giving me a ride, she showed up, and I said, "Well, you know, do you want to smoke before we go?" And she said, "Yeah, let's." And in the meantime, she had also bought herself a trailer, and we were going to stop by the trailer park so that she could put her deposit down and everything else on the way to work, and she wanted to show it to me. She was so proud, you know. So she shows up. We all decide, all right, we're going to smoke. Well, I didn't know anything about it. I thought it was just weed, just like any other weed.
Right,
we passed it around the room like 4 times. Well, she only took one hit, and she was like, no, I'm good. And I thought that was kind of strange, but I really didn't. I thought, well, we're on our way to work. Maybe she just doesn't want to get too high, you know? So we left, and we get to the trailer park. By the time we got to the trailer park, everything was like moving weird. And I was totally... I knew that I was higher than I should be for just a couple of hits of weed.
Right.
And I didn't know why, but I just knew, like, wow, I'm flying high. So she dealt with the guy that she had to deal with. We get in the car, and I'm telling her the whole way to work, I said, Helen, I'm a mess. Like, I don't even know what is going on right now. Like, I couldn't even think straight, you know? And kind of like you, things started looking weird and almost creepy. Thank God it was daytime for me. Unfortunately, you had to deal with this at night. So we get to work, and as we pull into the parking lot, I see a van there, and I went, oh my God, my mother's here. And I totally freaked out because of it was my mother's van, absolutely, right? So where you come in through the side, and you have to actually kind of go through the dining room for a few feet before you get behind into the kitchen area. Okay. So I just ran back there. I kept my head down, pretended like I didn't see anybody or anything, right? So now I'm peeking out, trying to see where is my mother. She wasn't there. It was just another van exactly like hers, but I was freaking out, right? I mean, out of my mind, because my mother didn't know that I smoked weed at the time or anything like that. I was supposed to be a little angel. And I want to say I was maybe there for about 20 minutes. They had me on drive-through. So I have the headset on, and I'm taking orders and everything. And at one point, I just turned to her. I said, Helen, I'm going to pass out. She's like, oh, Kelly, just take a couple deep breaths. I said, no, I really think I'm going to. And with that, I passed out. I literally went down, hit my head off of the ice bin on the way to the ground. And when I finally came to, they were on the phone trying to get an ambulance to come and get me. And I was like, no. And the manager is going, well, we have to. You passed out. Like, you have to get to the hospital. And I was like, no. I just, I didn't sleep well last night, and I haven't been eating right. I'll be all right. And I did get them. I was terrified. I thought they were going to take me to the hospital. I'm going to be drug tested. My whole world was going to, keep in mind, I was only 19. Right. So in my head, my whole world was coming to an end right then and there. So anyway, what they ended up doing was they called my friend Mandy, who had just gotten off of her shift. She came, she got me, she drove me home, and then she went back and finished my shift for me. After the fact, Helen came over to see how I was doing, and she's the one who told me. She was like, well, why did you smoke that much? I was like, I always smoke that much. What? And she's like, well, yeah, but it had angel dust in it. And I was like, what? I was so angry because I did not ask for that. I had no idea. There was no warning. And look at what the consequences could have been. I was like very upset. So, that was like the one quote unquote bad trip I've ever had. I was freaking.
No, I don't blame you.
The whole time.
If I had to drive home directly afterwards, it would have been a different story. Yeah. Because within the time of me having it to the time when I decided to go home was probably like an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours. Yeah. And I knew, like, my first line of defense, whenever something isn't jiving, is water. Yeah. Just boom, 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 just chugging water as best I can. So it probably looked weird. So I was just chugging water, like, and looking at the honeymooners, like, terrified. Because I should tell you this too. So in his house, he doesn't have a TV. He's got a projector with a screen that's probably like 8 foot by 8 foot. So I'm not seeing a little Ralph. I'm seeing Ralph. Big ass Ralph screaming. And every time, like, I just would see his whole face contort whenever he'd yell. Yeah. And I'm like, I can't handle this. Concentrate on Norton. He's so nice. Look at him. I'm just whatever I could. And driving home, like, I can handle driving. I'm fairly good at that aspect of getting myself where I need to be. Yeah. But even driving felt like, it was more like driving a boat.
I was going to say, it's more liquidy. Like, everything just feels different. You move different.
Yeah. And, like, the music in the car. Like, I didn't know what was going to be worse for me, hearing road noise or hearing music. And I went with the music.
Even though the music was freaking me out. You don't dare turn it off.
Big time freaking me out. Because this was like, it's like Polish electronic music. I don't know what trip I was even on to be on that, which was good, very creative stuff. But it wasn't it was not mixing with where my headspace was. And then to find out the next day, like, what the deal really was. And then, luckily, so far, like, that girl's not around no more. So...
Well, that's
the end.
And as mad as I was, I do have to say, it wore off actually pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
That dust part of, that trippy kind of part. I want to say, I mean, I was only like that for maybe about an hour and a half, 2 hours before I finally started. And I mean, I still wasn't 100% normal, but I started to feel normal, and I was like, all right, great. And so then the rest of the bag, I didn't want to, I really kind of didn't want it anymore. Yeah. But I'm certainly not going to do what was done to me. I ended up, I think it was our other roommate ended up buying it, but I made sure that he knew ahead of time, like, by the way, this is, and he, of course, he was thrilled,
right?
And that's fine if that's what you're looking to do. You are going to be thrilled, but when it takes you by surprise and, like I said, going to work, I mean, really, you couldn't give me the heads up here,
right?
So. And I did find it, I actually found it very strange that Helen was like, well, why do you think I only took one trip, or one hit? She goes, I tasted it in the first hit. And I was like, I didn't taste anything.
Yeah.
How do you even recognize that taste?
Yeah, I didn't know either.
Not a clue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had gotten dosed my first time at a Dead show in San Francisco.
Oh, nice.
Somebody offered me, a girl that was in our group offered me, as far as I remember it, Kelly, she asked me if I wanted a drink and handed me a bottle of water. And at the time, I don't remember the name of it, but it was a chemical that was going around at that show.
Okay, like mescaline or
something like that. Yeah. That they were putting in the water that would be undetected to the taste or visually.
Yeah.
So we were in the new Bill Graham Auditorium, and it's hot. I mean, it was January, but still, it's hot. You got 1,000 bodies in there.
Yeah. They're
all waiting for the show to start. I was like a camel. So somebody offered me water. I was thankful, and I drank it like it was water. I didn't take a huge, but I took a couple of good gulps.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you so much for the water.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, here comes Bob Weir, and there's like 8 of them. And I'm like, that ain't right. And he's like, I remember they started off the show, and I would stand, if for the Deadhead lingo, I'd be on the Bob side always. I would be on his side of the stage.
Yeah.
And I'm watching his hand, and he's playing the guitar, but his hand's doing this, like it's like trailing and jumping, and like I'm missing things, and then it's like. It felt like I was watching a VHS tape on a player that was malfunctioning.
Yeah.
And I was like, that wasn't water. And I couldn't see, like, because the backlighting of the stage was messing with my vision. And I made it out of the crowd into the hallway and to water and food. But it was like, I was able to keep one, like, pinky toe in reality.
Yeah.
But the one moment where I knew, like, okay, I'm experiencing very different things than the rest of the world is I got my bottle of water, which was a whole to-do, but there were water fountains at the place. So I had in my mind that I'll buy the $7 bottle of water.
Yeah.
I'll bend over for that, but then I'll go to the water fountain and refill
it. Yeah.
So I'm on one of my refills, and I'm behind, there's 2 people in front of me, 2, like, girls probably about my age at the time, and they're doing the same thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting behind them, and they finished filling their bottles, and they turn to me and they say something. I don't know. They were
could have been Chinese for all you know at that point.
They looked friendly, but they said something to me, and I said something back to them, and their faces just like turned to stone, and I felt that I said something friendly. Like, it wasn't nothing like anything, like just like, oh, thank you. Like, that's what I felt like I said. Like,
but clearly that's not
it's
what
not what
came
I
out.
said. And I don't know what came out. And I knew, I'm like, okay, Albert, you in the world, there's a bigger gap than you thought.
Yeah.
So just go find a seat. And there were seats. So this was New Year's Eve show. We were going into the Year of the Dragon. So what did the dead do? This was further, actually. What do? They had a big animatronic dragon hiding in the ceiling.
You had to have freaked out.
At that point, I had enough food and water in me, and I had found a seat.
Oh, okay.
Because the venue was like a hockey rink. So the rink itself was standing room, and you had the stage. But then the seats were above it.
Yeah.
So I found a seat, and I was sitting there riding it out. And at this point, I'm in the groove. I'm enjoying it. You know, I'm by myself. No one's bugging me. So I'm fine. Midnight hits. They start blowing smoke everywhere. This big towel comes off this dragon. Big, like, sheet covering it.
Yeah.
There's an actress sitting on the dragon in a mermaid outfit. I don't know how she got up there.
Yeah.
But she's up there.
Was she up there the whole time? Dear God, that poor woman.
I don't know.
What performers don't do.
I'm saying. So they start lowering this dragon. And they have like dragon roars coming through the PA.
Yeah.
The lights are going nuts. The band's on stage like playing like they do their like space out moment.
Yeah.
So they're playing all spaced out, weird music. And here comes this dragon. And have you ever, when you were a kid, do the thing where you get a bowl of water and you put pepper in the water and you stick a bar of soap and the pepper all expands?
Yeah.
That's what it was like. Nobody knew this was coming, Kelly. And the whole crowd just starts running.
Oh, no.
Away from where this dragon's coming down. I'm watching people running into one another.
Yeah.
Just totally freaked out because whatever I had was going around. Somebody in our group was seizuring after the show. I didn't see that happen.
Wow.
But whatever it was.
And keep in mind, it's a dead concert. There's probably people who were willingly taking stuff to begin with, but if it's unexpected, you don't see that coming.
I was the one, like, I was probably the only guy there who was naive and like, oh, water, how nice, you know?
Yeah.
So you had that happening. There were mushrooms and everything else that accompanies it. And yeah, like that was, so I was pissed the next day.
Yeah.
Somehow I managed, they got me back. We were in, I mean, I don't want this to take up the whole show, but we were in the Casa Loma Motel in San Francisco, which was pretty much a hostel.
Okay.
And the rooms were a full bed with probably about 2 feet on each side of the bed to the wall and a sink. No bathrooms were separate. The showers were separate. And we were more than, like, we had rented them 2 people a room. But then all these other people started bandwagoning on.
Yeah.
So I remember getting back to that room and just, like, we were sharing the bed. Like, we were rotating who slept in the bed.
Yeah.
And I remember getting to the room and there still being enough, like, not giving a shit in me to say, I know it is not my turn to take the bed, but screw you guys. You didn't dose me tonight? Guess what? I'm in the bed.
Yeah.
So I just, like, boomf in the bed and I heard, like, I fell asleep. It's like the yammering of hippies. Like, well, like, I guess we'll leave him in the bed. It's not his turn, though. I was like, they'll figure it out. I went to sleep.
Well, you know, the hippies, we're all kind people anyway. You know what I mean? I love how you said the you know, hearing the yammering of hippies in the background. That's it, you know, every year when I go up to the Woodstock reunion, that's what I go to sleep to. That's my white noise at night. You know what I mean? Hearing all the. That's such a nice, happy noise.
Yeah, but speaking of the Woodstock reunion, so where is that?
It's in Bethel.
Okay.
It's it's actually, the driveway is called Yasgur's Road. They put a sign at the end of it years ago when they were still trying to fight Gerald and not allow the camping to go on. And that was one way they did it. They put a sign at the end of the driveway calling it a road so that they could close the road.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's actually on Route 92, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because so that, I bring that up because, so our paths crossed in Scranton.
Yes.
At the Diva Theater.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
Yep. During her one night of one act, or her how did she? What did she name them? A night of one acts, I think, is all that it was called.
Yeah,
And you had written quite an interesting piece.
I
liked
did.
Your piece a lot.
Thank you.
And do you know, even though I didn't get cast in it, I still ended up with a nickname out of that.
Did you really?
I did.
What was the nickname?
Kickstand Kelly.
Oh, that's funny.
I forget how it even came up, but yeah, when they were rehearsing, I think I had to sit in for somebody at one point or something during a rehearsal.
Okay.
I forget how it happened, but I ended up with Kickstand Kelly. I was
Yeah.
like, I like that.
You know, I forgot how raunchy that play was until I seen it.
Until they tried to, yeah.
Because when I wrote that originally, I was like 19. My mother was still alive when I wrote that play.
Wow.
Because I grew up around lots of bikers.
Yeah.
In New York and up here. And I just wrote it. It was funny to me. And a couple of years later, I made it into a movie. And the film was very different than the play.
Okay.
What the play pretty much, the idea of these two girls sitting there having a conversation. So I had the two actresses memorize the lines as best they could, but it was just more improvised. And I sat them down and said, these are the bullet points we're going to hit, but we're not going to go line for line.
Right.
And they changed a lot of things. And then I kind of came at it from the style of like Borat or Bruno, right? We all were on board, and I said, okay, you guys are these characters, and I'm going to bring you to some biker bars. And you gotta stay in character. And I'm gonna be the filmmaker, and my buddy, he's gonna be the other helper. But like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Like, we're going into the real world, and we're gonna experiment here.
Yeah.
And it was awesome, but it moved so far from that script.
Okay.
So when I got into working with Paige and Scranton, and I was going through what things I had, and I had seen a play there about a guy and his hand. He had a hand.
The Handing in Spokane, I think is what it was called. That was a great play.
Yeah.
One of my very, very close friends, I love him to death, Casey Thomas. He directed it.
Okay.
Yeah. I love that play. I laughed hysterically.
So I had seen that play. I said, okay, well these folks are open to just about anything. So amongst the plays I submitted was The Blister Sisters. Yeah. And I breezed through it, making sure like there were no typos, if I wanted to gussy anything up. But I really didn't like dive into it, and I really didn't think much of it because I would have bet that she would have chose something else. And she chose that, and I was like, oh, awesome. And I gave like notes from afar. Yeah. I didn't get too involved in it. And I went to the opening, and everybody loved it, which I'm so glad and I'm proud to have done it. Yeah. But I was sitting like, oh my God, like they're doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? I mean, like, see, you used the word raunchy. I thought it was kind of poignant. You know what I mean? Like, there's cursing and this, that, and the other, but dealing with the whole drug issue. And like at the end, how it goes. Yeah. I thought it actually was a very good piece. Almost like what do you want, like a Scared Straight kind of a PSA. You know what I mean? But it was so well done. I thought.
Well, thank you.
Written and acted.
Yeah, they did a very good job. All the way
around. I was really I liked that piece a lot. I really did.
No, thank you, and I'm glad. I like what they ended up doing with it. Yeah. The movie is very different. Yeah.
And you know what? While we're on it, can I just say kudos to Paige, because you make a very good point. She was open to do something that, a lot of the theaters in the area, they, the audience is usually an older audience. Their repeat audience is the older audience that likes to come out. Well, they're always so afraid to offend them that we're still doing plays that they have nothing to do with today anymore. Right. You know what I mean? And so I have to give credit to Paige. She does take on the risky shows like Behanding in Spokane, like Blister Sisters, and it does go over well. And I think personally, if you want younger people, dare I say, not the blue hairs, as
Right.
they call them, which is terrible, but everybody knows what you mean when you say
Right.
it. If you want people other than the blue hairs to come out, you have to start expanding out of that, the old, like, Our Town, or, I can't even think of any, but like the older plays, and they're nice, they're fun to do, but you have to have more of a variety. You have to have something that's going to attract a younger crowd, something that's going to hold their interest.
Yeah, and I'd say that even the other plays that that they had that night, as I'm remembering it, were very much in the same vein. Like it was very mixed, and there was like a little bit of, in terms of what you're saying and with their audience, pushing the envelope a little bit.
Yeah.
Based on who their audience is.
It's not like anybody went out to specifically be offensive or anything, but we're also not going to stay in our little playpen.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. But, part of that, too, that night in particular, and this goes with every year when she has her night of one acts, that's all local writers.
Yeah.
So it's not the tried and true stuff that's been, on stage since 1940. Right. It is all newer. Mm-hmm. So thank God for local talent.
Yeah, yeah. So when was it? When was it that you got into acting?
Well, elementary school.
Okay. No, that's
really. I think kindergarten was my first play. Maybe first grade at the latest. But I had a very, very, a strict doesn't even cover it. My mother was extremely overbearing. Mm-hmm. I wasn't allowed to do any kind of like after school activities or anything like that. So drama club was never even an option. Okay. Elementary school, you get to be in the play because your class is doing the play.
Right.
By the time I got to high school, I could be in the musicals because I was in chorus class, but I was never going to have a part because my mom wasn't willing to drive me back and forth and do all of that stuff. So then, I actually, after I graduated, I wanted to go out to New York or even Philly, whatever, and make a go of it.
Right.
But at 18 years old, I had no money, no resources. I didn't know anybody out there, so to even go and be able to stay with somebody for a while until I got going, anything like that. So basically, as much as I had the dream to do it and the want and the drive, I never actually pursued it. And I ended up just working dead-end jobs here and there, trying to make ends meet, trying to keep the apartment, because I moved out. I mean, as soon as I graduated, I moved out. And so then it just became all about keeping the bills.
Right.
And, but at one point, I forget what year it was, but at one point I was working in a print shop, and the radio is always on. It's never not on. And a commercial came, not a commercial, but the morning guys came on, and they were talking to this guy, Chris Barnes. And he started talking about, and I had no idea, who he was or anything like that. And, but then they started talking about how he was going to have some improv classes.
Okay.
And I thought, all right, I was at a point in my life now, I had already gone through one or two kind of traumatic incidences, and I had finally gotten to the point in my life where I was like, you know what, the hell with it. I got to start living life.
Right.
And so I started taking those improv classes, and as it turns out, we did that for 3 years.
Okay.
At the Scranton Cultural Center. We performed every single week without fail, and it was the best time of my life. During all of that, that's when one or two of the other actors had mentioned, a community theater show here or there. I never even heard of community theater. I mean, there I am. I'm 20-some years old. Never heard of community theater ever. Like that's how sheltered our lives were when I was a kid. And so one day I went to an audition for You Can't Take It With You.
Okay.
All right, my first audition ever, and I got the lead, and I was like, oh my God, and that was it. I haven't really stopped since. You know, there's of course ebb and flow in the work,
Right,
but I
right.
really kind of haven't stopped since. How about, okay, now this sounds really, really corny, but it is the God's honest truth.
Okay.
Okay. When I was a kid, I had, my grandparents were already passed away long before I was born, but we had my Aunt Claire, which was actually my great aunt. So she was basically, for me, she was like my grandma. You know what I mean? And Aunt Claire's house is where all of the family gatherings would be, whether they be birthday parties or a summer picnic, whatever. And I can remember we were, you know, at a family birthday party, and somebody had asked me, you know, well, what do you want to do when you grow up and move out of your mom's house? And my first response was, well, I'm not going to leave my mom. She'll be lonely.
Right.
How sweet, right? But, so then they said, no, well, you know, you're still going to have a job. Like, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be an actress. Now, I couldn't have been much more than like 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, for me, it's never been about, like, you know, being rich and famous,
Right.
or any of that. It's not about the accolades. For me in particular, it's just always been in my blood.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally, it's always just been there. I don't know where it came from. My mother, if you put a microphone in front of her, she can't even say her name. And she'll tell you that
Right.
as soon as the microphone's not there. But for whatever reason, I have it. And I can't get rid of it, so...
No, and that's why I like to bring people on the show who it is in their blood, and they're making it work.
Trying.
You know, like there's
Yeah.
whether, like, I think about this with music too. People who aren't in the arts, they see it as you're either just starting or you're huge.
Right.
I think
And
a lot
if
of
you're
people.
anything in between, they see it as a failure.
Yeah.
Well, there's got to be steps in between that.
Exactly. And there's, you know, the people who are working their regular job and doing community theaters just out of the love of it, you know, whether they're amazing actors and actresses or not, you got to respect that, you know, that love for it and that stickability.
Yeah.
Because for the average person, like, no, you don't need to be doing it, but you love to do it, and, you know, so you're making that initiative.
I've actually had people question, you know, well, like you said, people who aren't in the arts, they don't understand. And I don't mean that to put them down, but they
Right.
don't understand that you have this thing, you need to feed it.
Yeah.
I've had people outright say, like, why are you bothering with all of this? Like, you know, you're literally putting in, and it's like a part-time job, because you get out of work and now you go to rehearsal, and you could be there from anywhere to 3 to 4 hours every night, 4 and 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
Before you ever even, for a whole month, before you even get to put the show up, at which point, when you do put the show up, now you got 2 weekends of your life that you've dedicated to this.
Yeah.
So they see it as like, what are you doing with your life? You could be doing so much other stuff. Yeah, but I don't want to do the other
Right.
stuff. I love this, you know? But, you know, and it's interesting, too. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine, Dave. He got into acting for a little while. Now he's kind of taken a little break from it. He just does it because it's fun and it's something to do. But he doesn't have the drive like we have that
Right.
drive that we have to do this.
Right.
Well, there was this guy. Oh God, I'm not going to remember his name now. Let's see if I can find it real quick. This actor, and if I show you his picture, you're going to know it. You'll know him immediately. He never even started until he was in his 60s. And when I show you his face, he was in like hundreds of films, hundreds and hundreds of TV shows. Oh shoot, I'm not going to find it now. I'll have to look it up later.
That's okay.
And get back to you, because as soon as I point him out, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I know that guy. I wish it was in my history, but it's not. It was too long ago. God,
That's
just
all right.
like that. But yeah, he wasn't even, he literally never even started until he was in his 60s. And it was cute. I saw him on a Johnny Carson episode that I was watching, and that's when I found out how many shows he had been in.
Wow.
And how he never started until he was in his 60s. And it was just a cute story because, you know, Johnny, of course, is sitting there going, well, you know, you like acting, you're obviously very good at it. How come it took you so long? And he's like, well, my wife didn't want to travel the country, and so I gave her what she wanted. And
Right.
now I'm retired, and now I can do this, and it was just so cute. But yeah, so the original point that I was getting at is there is no, especially when it comes to like music or acting, you know, it's not like growing up wanting to be a baseball player, and once you hit a certain age, you know that dream is done. For
Yeah.
us, that dream is not
No.
going to be done until the
No.
day we die, because
Right.
you can always do it. They're going to need people of literally any and every age group that there is. You know?
In February, I had an actress on here, Michelle Starr. You can go back and listen to the episode.
I may have seen that, or heard that one, but I'll check it out again.
She was a librarian here in Strasbourg. That was her career. She reached retirement age, whatever
Okay,
that was.
I did not see this one. I'll check that out.
She reached retirement age, and said, "Screw it, I'm doing it," and she's doing it, and she's doing the hell out of it.
Yeah.
She went from, busting her butt, doing extra work, to now getting like featured extra parts, to and it really, like, for anybody in the arts, that whole conversation I had with her has just proved to me something that I already knew, which is that it's not too late ever.
Not ever.
For the arts. Never, never, never.
Yeah.
There's always a chance if you put the work in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually where I need to get. I need to get back to that. I need to get like headshots and redo my resume and all that, so I could get back to that. I actually, my big claim to fame was that I I did the background extra work for a very short time, and
Okay.
I'm actually in National Treasure.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to pause it to see me, but I can tell you it's 1 hour, 33 minutes, and 55 seconds. If you pause it right there, you'll go, that's her! But yeah, and that is, that's how you start. You know, of course, community theater can keep you doing things, but it's not going to pay anything.
Right.
And, listen, if I could learn how to live for free, I'd do community theater every day for the rest of my life. Because, like I said, it's not about the fame and fortune. It's just, but if you want to actually pay your bills, that's how you start. You do the extra work, and then you do the featured extra, and then you just keep moving up from there.
Right.
Yeah. Good for her.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and it was fun to kind of, because I was doing my movies round about the same time she was just starting to get into things.
Yeah.
So we would cross paths, because we would cross paths at the synagogue here. So I would say to her, hey, like, I do my little movies, and, if you just want to do something for fun, you're welcome to be in it. So she was in, like, 2 or 3 of, like, little parts.
Yeah.
And so that was fun, too, and kind of being there at the beginning, and now, like, having her come back on, and now she's, like, a featured extra most of the time now, and just kind of working her way in.
Yeah.
She deals with a little bit of typecasting based on her age and her appearance. But that's something... Go ahead.
We all deal with that. I deal with that. You know what I mean? I get typecast a lot because I have the sweet, innocent look to me. Mm-hmm. It's just the Irish, really, I think, is what does it. So I'm either... Now, here's the interesting part. I'm either the sweet, innocent little girl, or often they'll make me the murderer because... Nobody's going to suspect. Exactly. But either way, it's based on your looks.
Yeah.
And, so that's something that goes with it.
Yeah, I think so. So what...
Now, what was her name again?
Michelle Starr.
Michelle Starr.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah, no, she's cool. I think she might... I don't know if she has, like, a site up yet or not. But, no, yeah, her episode was great. Better, like... more fun than I expected it to be.
Nice.
Once we got into the conversation, everything was good.
Yeah. Cool.
So what's like a favorite role of yours that you've done?
Okay.
Either on stage or in front of the camera.
Joy. Her name was Joy. I can't remember her last name now. It was a show called Scandal Point.
Okay.
And I recommend just read it, because the plot of the show was really well thought out, and it's very interesting to begin with. But she is one that she's very clever, she's very cunning, she's very manipulative, but it's all kind of behind the scenes, and she comes off all so nice and sweet, and she's kind of, I think she had a southern accent, if I remember correctly, and I had a lot of fun with that, because there was one scene in particular where the two gentlemen that are in the play, who I'm playing off of each other basically, they just had a conversation right before I come on stage that said something about, you know, oh, Joy, she never stops talking, or something like that. So then when you come on, the scene was written where she just yammers on and on and on. Well, I kind of made that, I expanded it throughout the rest of the play. I gave her a couple of little, you know, she was making tea or coffee or whatever, and I that was the first time I ever used this, and I've used it actually in another play too, where I literally take the sugar spoon and I'm just putting one after another while I'm talking and not even looking. There's probably 20 spoonfuls of sugar in there, and I stir it up, and the audience sees it. They're smart. They catch on to these little things, you know what I mean? You don't have to make everything so grandiose. They see these little things. Right. And it's so funny, because then I take a sip of it, they're like, ooh. It's like, you know, that was just part of, I actually had a lot of fun developing her character into what she ended up being. And like I said, on top of that, the play itself was just really interesting. So she's I think my favorite to date was Joy.
Nice. And that's the thing about doing that stuff in front of a live audience, is you getting that reaction.
Oh, yeah. You feed off of that.
Because that really is perfect, because you're building the suspense with each teaspoon of sugar you're putting in that cup. Right. They're like, wait a minute. And, you know, it goes on for long enough that everybody's caught on, and then you take that drink, and you get to feel that reaction immediately.
Yeah, yeah. And, like, you do feed off of it. And the other thing is, too, it's nice, it gives you validation, because there's been some plays where, you worked something into the character to develop that character, and then on the first 1 or 2 nights of the show, you get 0 reaction, and you go, okay, I guess they didn't like that. And it gives you an opportunity to then change that, or tweak it at least a little, and make it better. So not only do you feed off of the energy, but you get to learn what the audience is and is not willing to accept right there in the moment. And I love that. Yeah. I love that, you know? I mean, don't get me wrong, I love doing film and television too, but with the live theater, you know, there's no guessing, well, how did they respond to that at home? Yeah. It's right there.
No, it's definitely a rush. I mean, I spent more time behind the scenes than on the stage, but I was in a portion of Edward Albee's The Goat. Okay. Which is, okay, so like real quick, it's a play of the husband and a wife. They get a house in the country. So every weekend the husband's going up to work on this house. While he's up there, there's a farm next to the house. Okay. And they have animals at this farm. One of the animals on the farm is a goat. P.S. The husband falls in love with a goat. Okay. And I got to play the husband. So my scene was, I'm finally going to come out as this goat lover to my wife. And I have this, right? I have this whole monologue, and it was the universe saying, oh yeah? Because that year I was like, my goal, I want to try to be on stage. Enough of this behind the scenes stuff. Yeah. I was like, okay, here, have this role. Where I'm comparing the goat to her. Like the whole thing. All the intricacies and intimacies of the two of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was fun as hell, but it was like I had the worst part wasn't even
I understand your pain, but
the worst part wasn't even the lines. I could say the lines, doesn't matter, but I had to wear a very I had a button down, very tight button down, and a sweater vest.
Oh God!
A green sweater vest that made me want to jump off a building. I hated my outfit, but
Yeah.
that's part of it.
But
That's
I was
part of
gonna
it.
say sometimes that's part of it. You
Yeah.
know, that's the other. It's so funny to me when I watch an actor and they're supposed to be extremely angry, and their forehead doesn't even wrinkle.
Right? Yeah.
And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, because they're so concerned about not looking, they want to look pretty all the time. Well, you know what? Maybe your character isn't pretty. Maybe
Yeah.
you should ugg it down a little. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
seriously. There was this one show, The Housekeeper. I wasn't in it. Two very good friends of mine did it. They did it for quite a few times, actually, because it was so well received. And the woman is, in real life, she is very pretty. She's always very well put together, immaculate, the whole 9 yards. But she's supposed to be frumpy. Sure enough, she dressed, it was the funniest thing for me, I never saw her look frumpy before. But, you have to be willing to do that. And she did, and it looked right, and you forget that you're watching somebody that
Yeah.
you know, because it doesn't look like somebody that you know,
Right.
But yeah, I get a kick out of that sometimes when I notice people are a little... And it is hard, especially if you're a beginner actor. It's kind of hard to let go and be that so totally opposite and try to pretend like there's nobody watching you and not care what you look like and all of that. It's kind of hard. But I love how you're like... You're all like, yeah, this is the part. But that's the part, It is creepy, but sometimes that's kind of the fun part of it. For me, anyway. Like, I've played a couple of killers in my day, and some of them are really creepy.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I ever met this person in real life, my skin would crawl. But in all reality, I'm having a blast pretending to be this one.
Right. No, it was a fun time, and I think I just, having a good sense of humor about it. Maybe not that role.
No, not that role.
Oh,
but
yeah,
I mean,
no. I've been in, out of necessity, I've been in a couple of my own movies.
Okay.
Because people have either dropped out, and I know I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
So that's...
And if you're not...
Right. Then there's no movie.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think there'd need definitely the time to do it. But it would be fun. Like, it's fun to pretend.
It is. And, that's the other thing. Like, I oftentimes will compare it, like, again, like somebody like my mother who gets terrified at the idea of being on stage. So some people will say, like, oh my God, I don't know how you can do it.
Yeah.
I'm playing pretend. I'm doing exactly what I did when I was 5 years old.
Right.
I'm not doing anything spectacular.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
And
hopefully you enjoy it, but to me, I'm not doing anything all that, like, life-altering or
Right.
it's not rocket science. For me, I feel like I'm just a kid playing pretend.
Yeah. And I feel like I'd probably be a little bit better at it now because I care less.
Yeah.
About opinions or outside, like, what got me through that particular, because I was very nervous my first time. I was in like a black box theater, so the audience was as close as, like, just across the table like this.
Yeah.
And I had family was there, so there was a lot for me to be nervous about, but I also had a stomach bug.
Oh God.
And I was just throwing up all day.
Yeah.
So I was fine, and they were gonna say, we don't need to do this. Like, it's okay if you want to back out. And I knew enough to know that, like, me being sick was enough to distract me from what was making me nervous.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I just went up there, and here I'm a guy coming out as a goat lover. So the paleness and the flushes, yeah, it worked.
It kind of fits.
It fit. Had I puked right on stage, everyone was like, "Oh wow, how method!"
Exactly. Wow, give him an Oscar.
Yeah.
It's funny you should say that. We were talking about my first play ever. My first community play ever was Can't Take It With You. The first 2 weekends were so well received that they actually asked us if we would do a third weekend, which was all last minute. There was, I think, only 1 or 2 people who couldn't, but their roles were short enough that you could get somebody else to learn the lines quickly. And we ended up doing it a third week. That third week, the guy that was playing opposite of me, of course, we fall in love. Well, there's once or twice in the play that we kiss. He was so sick. He was so sick, and the snot is literally running down, and it's on his lip, and he just plants one on me, and to this day, I'm like, ew! You couldn't at least use your sleeve or something.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But yeah, and that's the kind of funny behind the scenes stuff that, you know, those are the tales that only we know. Yeah.
No, and it's all about, you know, like there's a level of illusion between you and the audience. So yeah, most people probably didn't even know that. They didn't
have a clue.
And you were such a good actor, you didn't.
Somebody else's snot.
No, see, and how lucky you are. No other life choice would have landed you there.
Yes, lucky. Your choice of words baffles me, but lucky, I'll go with that.
Yeah, there could be people out there dying for a mouthful of snot.
There could be.
And you got it for free.
You know what? There's probably a fetish out there for people who like snot. I don't know. And I got it for free, you're right.
No, that's what...
Anyway.
Yeah, luckily I wasn't kissing anybody in that show. And the goat wasn't there.
You didn't have to kiss the goat?
I didn't have to kiss the goat.
All right.
There was, you know what the best part of it, and then we could switch, but my monologue was trimmed in that show.
Okay.
It had been longer.
Yeah.
And in part of the monologue, this character, this fucking guy, he falls in love with the goat and he starts like seeing attractive qualities in other animals too.
Oh, no.
So, like, there's this one part of the monologue where he's rattling off, like, sheeps and ducks and, like, all these other things. And I'm like, what am I memorizing? And I had memorized that whole thing, and then it started to get trimmed. Because it was for, like, a one-act night.
Okay.
And the plays had to be a certain...
length.
Yeah. Or things were getting cut. But that was, like, my favorite little part, because he's just like, oh, yeah, and I find, like, sheep and ducks and roosters... I'm like, who is this dude?
Do these people exist in real life?
I'm sure they do. You go 25 minutes west of here.
That's the interesting part. You figure, you know, like a lot of these characters are so far off that you're like, these people can't really exist. But they have to, because somebody wrote about them, so somebody met somebody like that somewhere along the lines. Yeah. You know what I mean?
At least like a reasonable facsimile
exactly.
that they're building on.
Yeah.
So yeah. But we are just about out of time.
Okay.
But this was so much fun, and I'm definitely going to have you back on.
Good, yeah.
Because, time just flew by. We're at an hour.
I'm excited. I was afraid I wouldn't have anything to say, so.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks again for doing it. And do you have anything coming up?
No. COVID kind of put the kibosh on everything that I had going on, so.
Okay. Well, keep me updated, and I'll throw it in the show.
That's awesome.
If you have any plays coming up or any performances. Cool. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Well, if that wasn't a fun episode, I don't know what could be. Thank you to Kelly for coming on the show. Thank you guys for listening to the show or watching the show. I really appreciate it. The sound was a little crazy, but you know what? This is what we're working with. It gives it some flavor. You know what I'm saying? This is real life we're dealing with here. No Mickey Mouse stuff. You can check out this episode and more on all major podcast platforms and on YouTube with video. While you're looking at the video, you can check out the rest of the Albert Shivers YouTube channel with the art videos and all sorts of new things that will be coming out this week and the coming weeks. The Albert Shivers Patreon page is up and running. You can go check that out. And don't forget, wherever you're consuming this podcast, if you feel so moved, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you again to Kelly for being on the show. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else.